Welcome into the show, everybody. Christian interjecting here with Dave Borges, who covers UConn for CT Insider. Also, a quick shout out to Dave for his book Hurley's Heroes, which is about just the insane run UConn has been on under Dan Hurley the last 2 years. Of course, he couldn't do a three-peat, but really exciting. That book comes out November 3rd. I will link that in the description below. Dave, thanks for being here with me.
Sure, good to be here, Christian.
So that Florida game is what sticks out to me about UConn season. Of course, you go to Maui and Hurley blows up. He gets all this criticism because you lose. He's like, I'm never doing one of those tournaments again. In Big East play, you see the up and down. You struggle without McNeely. But you saw, stuff come together. Mahaney not being what he was intended to be, just really hurt. You asked for a lot for Diari and all this. But all that being said, you took Florida down to the wire and easily could have beat them. Just to start, any reflections on just what last year was like for Dan Hurley in this program and any potential lessons that he kind of took as he, attacked the portal and built this roster?
Yeah, last year was just a difficult year. I mean, exhausting year. And some of it was brought upon by Dan himself with his, obviously the sideline behavior in Maui, and certainly some of the things he was caught on camera doing at opposing fans, and some of it obviously provoked, but he probably needs to diffuse the situation a little better. Even some of the stuff he was seen saying or mouthing to refs during games. So it brought on a lot of kind of bad publicity and a lot of stress. And again, he doesn't want to be known as a victim because he brought upon a lot of it himself. And the team just wasn't as good as the last few years. And he knew that was probably going to be the case. I think the lesson learned in terms of on the floor was they just needed more better point guard play. And they had two guys. They had Hassan Diari, who was the sixth man of the year the prior season, the championship year. I think they thought he could kind of fulfill that role again. He probably could have if he had a guy like Tristan Newton, or perhaps in this year, Silas Diari Jr. ahead of him, kind of a big 6'4", 6'5" type point guard. But they needed Hassan to play, and he was injured for much of the year because, like you mentioned, Aiden Mahaney just didn't quite work out as a point guard. Big East is a different animal than the WCC, and he struggled at times, so it just didn't work out here for him. So yeah, I think just constructing the roster, big point guard, which is what Hurley and the staff love. They got that now with Silas Diari Jr. And a little more firepower, and obviously defensively too was maybe their biggest bugaboo last year. They just didn't guard the perimeter that well, and at times, and they also didn't guard dribble penetration. So they've really made a conscious effort to improve on that end of the floor this year with some new guys, but also with guys returning who need to step up defensively. And I think those are the lessons on the floor last year: defense and point guard play. And off the floor is just Dan realizing that he's got to maybe rein things in a little bit, although he said that before and it doesn't always work.
Let's dive in more to that point guard play. So Diari averaged 14, 4, and 3, nearly 2 steals a game at Georgia. I really felt like he grew a lot. Like I thought he was, he just became a much better shooter, a guy that you trust, and you can see just his pace of play and the way he can score at all three levels. That you're asking a ton for him to beat Tristan Newton, but he's in that same mold as a big guard who can run the offense in a similar way, and then provide that same intensity on the defensive end. Was he like the home run top target that they wanted as this point guard in the portal? And how's it been, bringing him to campus and integrating him with the culture in this roster?
Yeah, I think he was definitely what they were looking for. Again, like you said, a big guard. Not he's about 6'4", and he's a little bit more put together than Tristan Newton was. Tristan might have had an inch on him height wise, but a very good player the last 2 years at a good Georgia program that made the tournament last year. Good scorer, tough kid, tough player. Yeah, when he came on campus for his official visit back in April or so, the associate head coach Kimani Young took one look at him and said, "There's my PG," and because he fits the suit, as they say. He's perfect. So he was definitely a huge priority for them, and they got him. and I think they think he's going to be a very good player.
I know there's probably more key players that you'd expect me to ask about next, but I want to ask about Malachi Smith next. So I think just having that element off the bench, kind of being similar to Diarra as this like pesky 6-foot guard who can, facilitate. He averaged 5 assists per game last year. Dayton obviously missed a couple seasons, just dealt with a lot of injuries. How is he doing health-wise? Is there a chance that maybe just, he needed a year to kind of get his feet under him and that he can because he was really good as a freshman. It was just like 2022 at this point. But what are expectations for Malachi Smith to come in here and be a really good guard off the bench?
They're really excited about him. They expect him to be, in all likelihood, the backup of Diari, but he's going to play starters minutes. And Dan even said the other day that he can share the floor with Silas at times this year as well. And of course, Silas Diari Jr. missed the exhibition game against Boston College the other night. Malachi started and played pretty well. I mean, he's just very pesky, very energetic, very good defensively. It seems he was just an energy giver, and you can see when he was on the floor, the team just he just energized things. So he's going to be a spark plug off the bench most likely, but going to play a lot, and they really like him. I think he's going to be a real good addition. Of course, he helped beat UConn last year in Maui when he was with Dayton, although he didn't have a great game that particular game. But now he's here. Now he's joined him, and he's hoping to end his college career on a winning note.
Just makes me, he was 14th in the country in assist rate last year, and just having that point guard spot solidified. And then you look at solo ball, 14 points a game, 41% from three, just an absolute lights out shooter. And I think there's upside for him to become even a better scorer than that. Caravan, we obviously know what he is, just the absolute winner, connector, just does everything right offensively, understands the system so well. And then you bring in Braylon Mullins, who's just this absolute sniper, potential one and done type of guy that just seems like a perfect fit in Hurley's system. I feel like offensively, the expectation here should be that this team is as good as the championship teams. How do you see those three guys, Solo Ball, Alex Caravan, and Braylon Mullins? What comes to mind just about how their summer's been and what you expect for them this year?
Even though they against Boston College the other night they struggled shooting, this team is going to have a lot of shooters, and that's perfect in Dan Hurley's offense. And I do think Braylon Mullins is going to be an excellent freshman. Looks like he's already cracked the starting rotation, and he's a 6'5" long, athletic kid who just knows basketball and knows where he's supposed to be on the floor, and you can obviously can shoot. He is a freshman. Sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve, but I think he'll be really good for them this year. Caravan, I think he's going to have a big bounce back year from last year when he really struggled for a good portion of the Big East season shooting. And he struggled a little bit shooting the other night, as did just about the entire team. But I think shooting is the least of their concerns this year, and I think they're going to be really good at it. It's in solo ball. I mean, there were times last year where he just was unconscious, and I think he could be one of the very best shooters in the country. It's tempting, really, and a lot of people have done this, including Hurley, and to kind of compare this team to the 2022-23 championship team when you got the real good point guard. Big point guard play, and then you got the really good player off the bench, and a good point guard off the bench. And you got a shooter. They had Jordan Hawkins, now you have Solo Ball in that spot. Out Caravan is still there, and I'm sure they'll get to the bigs. And I think they have a pretty good 1-2 combination among centers too. So this team seems too deep at every position, which is rare in college basketball these days, and it's going to serve them well this season.
On Solo Ball, do you think there is a chance that he's the leading scorer on this team, or do you think, I guess, how would you see that between Diari Mullins or even Terrance Reed, who we'll get to here in a second?
Yeah, it's I usually lean towards the 3-point shooters as the leading scorers because obviously they have the 3-pointer to help them out. It's going to be to figure out who the leading scorer on this team is going to be. It's between Ball, Caravan, and Reed. You'd assume, and I think they'll all be in the same general area in the 14, 15 a game area because I just think there's so much. It's going to be so spread around that it's hard for me to see one of those guys, even though they're capable of it, to kind of break out an average 18, 19 a game. And so I think Solo could definitely be the leading scorer on the team. I think he's, he had interest. He was on NBA mock draft boards for whatever that's worth last spring, and he didn't even consider the NBA. He just wanted to come back, and he loves this program so much. But I think this year, if he really, continues to shoot the ball like he has, and obviously he's going to improve defensively in some other aspects, offensively. But if he can continue to shoot the way he has, he's going to be a guy who NBA teams are probably going to consider as a draft pick come June.
With a guy like that, who it's clear that that perimeter defense is a growth area, and that's kind of what can take him to the next level. Do you know what the staff does with him that summer? Is it just putting on a lot of muscle? Is it agility things? Like, is there a chance that he becomes a much better defender this year?
Yeah, I think aside from the technical aspects of it, I think it's just an attitude that he's got to have that they're going to try to instill in him. He probably has it, but he's a nice kid, and they want him to be a little meaner probably. Defense, and it sounds like a cliche, but a lot of it is just attitude, intensity, meanness out on the floor. I think Solo wants to be a better defensive player. He certainly has the length and the athleticism to be one. So I think it's just a matter of kind of beating that into him and kind of getting him to be a little more intense and gritty out there. And I think that's probably the main thing they've worked on throughout the offseason.
Let's talk about Terrace. 14-9 and 2 blocks in games where he played 25 minutes or more. The problem was just keeping him out there, whether it was foul trouble or conditioning. But tell me what kind of leap could be in store for Terrace, because when he was playing at a high level and, he was able to be that dominant force on the inside, like a Sanogo was, like a Klingon was, that's what I feel like really gets the UConn machine going. So what do you think is in store for Terrance Reed?
Yeah, he was unstoppable at times last year, against Providence. And all this was off the bench too. I mean, Samson Johnson started at center all year. Terrace put up much better numbers than Samson did, but Samson was the 2-time champion, and Dan Hurley was kind of loyal to him. And it could have worked out either way, but Terrace took to the role fine. You're right. The foul trouble is the biggest issue with him. If he's able to stay on the floor, I think, again, he's a 15, 16 point per game scorer this year, maybe even more. But again, I just think the scoring is going to be a little more spread out. But he can be unstoppable in there. He's got great footwork. He's got a great touch around the rim, great moves. He's a classic center. He's 6'11" now. He's a classic kind of low post guy. He's not going to go out and shoot threes, but and he's a pretty good rim protector, and he's a dog on the boards too. He's a really good offensive rebounder. So, I think he is in for a really, really big season. He's hurt right now. He's got a hamstring issue. They're hoping to have him by the season opener on November 3rd. They think that he might not be able to play in the exhibition against Michigan State on October 28th. We'll see. But and he's another guy who has to get a little meaner. Dan Hurley has stressed that a little more of a mean streak out there. But otherwise, yeah, I just see him as one of the best bigs in the country easily.
The other top recruit coming in, Eric Reiba, if I'm saying that right, from Germany, who played at the U19s. Super skilled from what I saw of him, just like the way he puts the ball on the floor and can shoot, and it's just his feel offensively is a perfect fit. But what I want to know is defensively, can he be that kind of like drop anchor that Samson and I when I say Klingon, I'm not actually expecting them to be Donovan Klingon level good. He's already one of the best defenders in the NBA, but like, can he give UConn that presence of just this really big body off the bench and maybe even provide something offensively that Klingon didn't, although he was a great passer and everything.
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, he's a freshman. It's tough to come in and do that straight out of high school. He looks like he's thickened up and got a little stronger over the summer from what I saw him last year in high school. That's the hope that because offensively, I think he's absolutely I think he's going to play the Donovan Klingon role, probably play as a freshman, the 12, 13, 14 minutes a game off the bench as a backup center, but in a very different way. He's not the rim protector that Donovan Klingon was and is. Can he get to a reasonable facsimile of that? They're going to work on it. They got to, they want him to be better off the boards, better blocking shots, better defensively. But offensively, he's very diverse. He can step back and shoot the three. We haven't seen that yet, but He did that a lot, and he's known as a guy who can play out in the perimeter, a 7-footer who can play in the perimeter, really good distributor, really good passer of the ball. And as we saw against Boston College, some pretty good, as I get a phone call here, some pretty good footwork around the rim and athleticism and touch around the rim. So he looks like a good one, but he's got some work to do.
The last guy in this top 8 is Jalen Stewart, who, another program guy. This is his 3rd year. You see the flashes with him where you get really excited, just his versatility at 6'7", hasn't fully thrown it together consistently. Do you think that's something that can happen this year?
Yeah, it's there for him. I mean, I think the hope was for him and Braylon Mullins probably were battling it out maybe for that 5th starting spot. And at least against Boston College, Braylon Mullins seems to have won out. But I think Jalen, he's a versatile player. He can guard a little bit. We saw him last year kind of shut down the big kid from Villanova, Eric. What was his name? What's that?
Dixon.
Eric Dixon. Yeah, already forgot his name. He was there for like 10 years. And he can shoot a little bit. He does a lot of things nicely. He's pretty athletic. Looks like he's gotten stronger. So he's a versatile player. I've always liked Jalen ever since the first time I saw him back at the Peach Jam a few years ago. And he's just going to have to work for minutes and work to stay on the floor. But he's talented, and there's a spot for him in the rotation, no question. As long as he can become that sort of 6'6", 6'7" wing that can defend on the perimeter and can shoot, because UConn needs that right now. And between him and Jaden Ross, another guy who's kind of hasn't quite yet, lived up to maybe what people thought he could be in college, but he's in a similar situation. It's kind of do or die time for him this year, for Jaden Ross, and for both those guys. There's a role for both of them if they can, if they're up to the task.
Whether it's Jaden Ross or one of these other freshmen or these mid-major transfers or foreign guys, who else do you expect to factor in here?
Well, they got Jacob Furphy. He's a freshman from Tasmania. And he's helped Dan Hurley learn how to speak Australian. They like him a lot. I know the staff has praised him a lot for being, again, another versatile guy who could probably play a little point. I think he's a 6'5", 6'6" kid, 6'6", who can kind of play just about. He can play 4 different positions on the floor. But I do think that it's going to be tough for him to crack the rotation this year. I haven't seen a lot of him. We saw about 5 minutes of him against Boston College. Didn't do a whole lot, but it's tough to do much in that time, especially since some of it was garbage time. So, he's going to be banging on the door for maybe that 9th or 10th man, which is tough to maintain throughout a season. I think usually by around February, so it gets whittled down to like sort of an 8-man rotation. But he'll see some playing time early, and if he can prove himself as a shooter and as a guy who can play multiple positions, I think Jacob Furphy could see some playing time possibly. And then, a couple of transfers who are basically brought in, I think, with the understanding, by and large, that they're kind of like, the backups. Alec Melender is a kid, grad transfer from IU
Yes,
IU Indy, yeah. Used to be the IUPUI or whatever it was.
Right.
He's the 3rd point guard. I think he probably realizes that, but he looks like he's got some ability, and there'll be times when they'll need him. And Dwayne Karoma, 6'8", transfer, who's played at a number of different schools, was forced into a little more action than normal the other night with Terrance Reed being out, and certainly looked good. Grabbed 5 rebounds in about 12 minutes of play, and so those guys will play some minutes. There'll be depth pieces, but they'll play. They'll see some time if there's foul trouble or injuries and things like that. I don't think the European guys, I don't know much about. I don't think they were brought in here really to play a whole lot. Again, depth pieces, practice pieces. The one big kid, the 7-footer, had a nice block shot the other night from the kid from Turkey. So, but I wouldn't anticipate them playing a whole lot this season.
When I look at this roster and just think, like you talk about the comparisons you can draw to the championship team a couple of years ago, on paper, like and just with everything the staff has proven, this offense should be very elite. Just with the shooting, with Diari as a guard, with Malachi off the bench, with Terrace taking another step. So defensively is where, maybe that championship pedigree is realized. How do you see them being able to be like a top 20-ish or top 10-ish defense? Like what needs to happen for that level to be hit?
Just improvement from a lot of guys, like some of the guys you mentioned, solo ball. Can Braylon Mullins make a big impact defensively as a freshman? Better, just again, that kind of dog mentality. I do think that guys like Malachi Smith are going to come in and bring that to a large degree. You could see it the other night. Terrance Reed staying out of foul trouble, being a rim protector. Eric Ryba, as we mentioned, being able to adequately back him up as a defensive presence, as a 7-footer. All those things, just a collective attitude. Again, I know it sounds cliche, it sounds kind of simplistic, but just that dog mentality, really, that they have to have and play, and not want guys to drive on them. Take a personal insult when people try to take the ball to the hole against them, and just know where shooters are and guard the perimeter better, because that's another thing they haven't done well. They've given up. Teams have shot very well against them over the last couple of years, honestly, from three. So that's it's just all about mentality, and it's been such a stress and focus of the coaching staff that I'd be shocked if they at least didn't come and put up a much better defensive effort this season.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to see this offense play. Like even last year when they were clearly didn't have the talent of the national championship teams, just the way they play together, it's just great basketball. I'm just a fan of seeing that. And a guy like Caravan who thrives, as a freshman, already winning a title and being a key player on that team. Like this is his senior year now. He's the leader, and this is, a step up in talent that he's surrounded with this year compared to last. And I think that's where his 3-point percentage should go from 35% that it was last year back up to above 40, where it should be. Any final thoughts or nuggets from this summer on any of these guys?
Yeah, I think Alex, as you mentioned, he's in line to finish this season as finish his career as an all-time UConn player in terms of the records he could, the all-time lists he could end up on top of. In terms of games played, games started, victories, NCAA tournament victories, 3-pointers. He can be among the top 10, 5 or 10 all-time leading scorers in UConn history. There's a lot of things like that in play for him, but the most important one would be to win a third national title, which nobody has done since in 50 years, since the UCLA guys of John Wooden. So, that's the most important thing for him. The individual stuff is secondary. He wants to go out as a 3-time champion. What an incredible thing that would be. I think this is a great, really, really, really great team. Well, let's just say really, really good team. Let's not go great yet. But depth, perfect mix of experience and continuity, roster retention, mixed with a couple of guys they really needed in 2-point guards and some really good, athletic, talented freshmen. Too deep at every spot. I think it's a really good team. I have them ranked number 2 in the country. In my preseason poll, I got Purdue 1. I think Purdue deserves it with the returning scoring and players that they have. But UConn is, I believe, certainly a national championship contender this season.
1,000%. And odds-wise, they're right behind Purdue and Houston. Right behind Purdue and Houston in championship odds. This is the bar is high as it should be for this UConn roster. Last thing before I get you out of here, I couldn't find a spot for it. My setup behind me. But look at this. I got this when I was 10 years old. I went to UConn, Texas, when it was like Avery Bradley. It was Kemba, Stanley Robinson, rest in peace. Does this look familiar to you? This bone? I think that was the game I got it at, but it's just funny that after all these years I still
yeah. That was Texas was number 1 in the country, I think.
Yes, I think so. UConn won by 14.
And Calhoun wasn't coaching. He was out, right? And George Blaney took over. This was at Gamble, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was 10. It was definitely a gamble, but all I remember was I have memories from it, but I don't remember the Calhoun.
That was one of the loudest gyms I've ever been in. That was incredible. They beat the number 1 team in the country, and was an exciting day. Yeah, that is that's not chronicled in my book actually, but that was quite a day.
Very cool. Thanks again for coming on. And linked below will be Dave's book on Dan Hurley coming out November 3rd.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian. Good talking to you.